So I usually wait for a bit, about 30 seconds, 30 seconds to 1 minute until they all come in, Shreya.
Yes.
Let's start.
Yeah, you should wait.
Yeah.
I'm letting them in now. I'm
Yes,
muting.
yes. I have the participants list open. I'll keep an eye on it. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to IIJNM webinar series Storyboarding Journalism. My name is Sangeeta Alvar. I'm the Assistant Professor of English at IIJNM. Today's webinar is on journalism as a catalyst for change. We have our alumni Shreya Parikh, who's the founder of the Stories of Change here. Shreya Parikh is a development journalist and a documentary filmmaker with over 7 years of experience in this field. She has covered over 1,000 stories on social development, rural, and environmental issues and solutions. The format of the webinar will be of 60 minutes. We will have 40 minutes for the speaker to talk and 20 minutes for you to ask questions. Please input your questions in the chat box and make sure you address it to everybody. When I call your name out, you can unmute yourself and ask the speaker your questions. Hi, Shreya.
Hi, Sangeeta. Thank you for having me here today.
Hi, it's really nice to have you.
Same here.
So, do you want to tell us about how your journey at IIJNM was, and why did you choose development journalism in particular? And if studying at IIJNM, studying development journalism at IIJNM helped?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'll come to how it helped me part later. But when I came to IIJNM, I knew that I wanted to. First thing was that I liked writing, and that's why I had come to the college where I could explore writing and at the same time write stories which could somehow make my voice heard, or a very vague idea of journalism I had when I first come here. And then we had this boot camp and we had all these classes which gave me a lot of clarity on what truly journalism means and how you can use it as a tool, one, to bring about right kind of information, two, also to bring about a change. I studied development journalism under Nagesh Hegde sir, and it was his classes which gave me a very clear picture of what development journalism exactly is. I remember him asking a question like, what do you think development is? And I said that it's good buildings and flyovers and hospitals and all. And he's like, no, that's completely wrong. If you really want to see what true development is, you should look at the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid and what they are doing and what kind of life they are living. And if their life is developed enough, that's true development. And that's the kind of stories that you should do in this section of development. So I started reading up more such stories, and sadly I couldn't find such stories on the newspapers, in the newspapers, be it the front page or the middle pages, anywhere. And that's when I decided that once I go out of the college, I will pursue something which is not often covered. I'll do stories which I want to read and I can't find in the newspapers. And that's how my whole journey after IIJNM started.
And why did you take up development journalism in particular?
So before I actually joined the journalism college, I was already associated with a lot of NGOs and social work and all of that. And I just didn't know how to channelize all of that energy that I had into something which is more productive. I didn't want to do charity. I didn't want to do volunteer work. I wanted to get involved in a proper profession. I never wanted to have the thrill of the newsroom. I just wanted to bring out stories in a interesting way. And that's what out of all the subjects we had, I thought development journalism was something which was closer to my agenda in life, and that's something I can explore. And over the period of time, with the classes and with the kind of exposure I got in the college, I got more clarity of why this is definitely something which I'll continue even after I go out of the college. And that's why maybe when placements happened in college, I didn't sit for any bigger newsrooms or channels and all. I only sat for a startup magazine which had come, and they used to write about environment and sustainability. And I just got through that magazine, and I was really happy. Although my parents were skeptical, like you should have gone to a newspaper and where you could look like a proper journalist and all. But I was sure like I will pursue something which is closer to my idea of journalism, and something which it's more fruitful for me.
Thank you, Shreya. Do you want to tell us how stories of change, how your journey to stories of change happened, and
Yeah.
how was that? Yes.
Okay, so it didn't happen suddenly. I always had this in my mind that I wanted to do stories which I'm not getting chance to do right now at my current publication. Although I was working with two magazines which gave me a lot of good opportunity to do stories of positive relevance, of social issues, environment and all. But the way these startup magazines or any newsroom works is like they don't have the bandwidth or resources to send their reporters on the field very often. They have their reporters sitting in the news rooms, and they call, and then they do everything in that AC confined room. And I thought if we really wanted to do stories and bring out the real voices from the rural areas, or we really want to document social change, there has to be a better way to document that. One, I also read that out of all the news that's published in the newspaper, only 2% of it is about rural areas. And it was surprising because about 60 to 70% of our population resides in rural areas. So why is when so many of us are in rural areas, why are we not represented well in the mainstream media? So I tried to do such stories where I was already working, but because of the lack of resources and funds, I wasn't getting a chance to do all of that. So that's when I decided that okay, I'll take a break, I'll explore this, I'll travel, and I'll document these stories. So that's when I quit my job. I had some savings, and I started creating documentary films on inspirational women from rural areas. And a couple of those, I made actually three documentary films, and one of those films got a really good response. A lot of the people came forward to support the person that I had written about. And one of those documentaries actually was used by the Indian government when that person received Padma Shri recently. So all of these things made me think like if I really wanted to start something, I need not depend on a proper structure. I can do it on my own. So I just randomly one day started this as a blog, like one person thing. I just bought a free domain from WordPress, didn't spend a penny on anything. And because I was equipped with a lot of skills which IIGNM taught me, like editing and video editing, story editing, so I just didn't need anyone else to initially run a company. So I started publishing stories every day, and gradually people got connected. I got connected with a lot of rural reporters with the help of Gangadhar, who's another IIGNM alumni. So I took help from him to get connected with rural reporters, who also in return gave me really good stories. And that's how it started. And till date I don't have a huge team. I am just one person with one more full-time person and an intern, but we do have over 30 rural reporters from across India who are sending us stories.
That's
It's
great,
great.
Shreya. I keep looking at the stories of change, and I can only say that it's a brilliant thing for me to look at. Also, one of the questions that has been on my mind is how do you identify a story as a development story, and what does development journalism actually contain?
Okay. So, you need to have a different take on whatever you're reading. For example, if you read a business news about a corporate or anything, for example, you're covering a press conference on a garment launch, you go there, and one way to do it is okay, you report whatever you see. Okay, this company launched this, and these are the people present there. Or you ask deeper questions about who are the persons behind creating these garments, the weavers, the kind of natural dyes you guys have used, or the kind of material you have used. So I think the question you can ask yourself is, um, what information should I cover in my story that not just provides information, one angle information, but also gives more details about the source of the story, the source of the product, or gives me more knowledge about the real issues of the society. So any story I'm doing, is it really affecting any section of the society, or is just a random piece of news that will add no value to my life? For example, if I read any news about uh, road accidents, like, and there's so many news that we see, and it's just numbers. I read it today and I don't even remember it after 30 minutes. So how do I present this news in a way that not just it brings out the information, but also leads to a bigger chain of events? Like if I write about, okay, these many accidents happened on this road and this is why it happened, and there are similar roads, similar kind of incidents have been reported from these many areas, and maybe because of the road's material, or because the contract of this person was such that he didn't use such material. So if I go deeper, or if I talk about uh, who constructed that road, were they paid enough, or do they enough for Manrega 100 days, that or it was just a random like thing that the government did to utilize some sort of funds. So I think there are many ways you can do stories in different angles and find out how much value this piece of information is adding. Yeah.
Right. Um, you also had a previous experience in the field before you started the Stories of Change. You worked for The Alternative and The Better India.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it was like really interesting, because I joined The Alternative. It was my first job. So I was a cub reporter there, and surprisingly for both these magazines, I was their first staff reporter ever. So they had no journalists before me. They had just started out, and I became there this one person who was just producing stories at mass level, like 2 stories every day, 3 stories every day. And I was really enjoying all that work I was getting. Initially, it was a lot overwhelming, because I'd just come out of the college, and in college we are taught more about hard news and how to cover news for a newspaper or a broadcast channel, and magazine was a like separate section. But here I was like just writing feature articles and all. So it did get overwhelming in the start, but once I got the hang of it, it became really interesting, because I met a lot of people. And how many people get a chance in the first year of their employment to work on a book, and then get their names published on a book, and then independently work on a project, and be on the field and take independent decisions. And it was a really good experience for me at The Alternative, which gave me good connections in Bangalore, because the magazine itself was based out of Bangalore, and they had connections with the core development community of Bangalore. So I got connected to the waterman of India, the water Gandhi of India, and all of those people that I really admired, I got connected to. And then I moved to The Better India, where I think my work there gave a whole new direction to my career. Um, with The Better India, I produced over 500 to 600 stories, and all of them were positive stories. And till then, I didn't knew the kind of impact stories can create. But because The Better India had a huge audience, I could see my stories resulting into bigger change. Like I did a story on this small school in Madhya Pradesh, and how they were struggling to survive and the infrastructure was falling and all. So after I released that story, a lot of the people came out in support of that school. They made a whole new building for the kids. They constructed a library for the kids. They donated laptops and all. And so the school dedicated one section of their library to me. So I actually have my name in that library. So keeping aside the bigger change, these are smaller incentives I got while I worked there. And like a lot of the stories, like I remember I used to get calls from KBC and all of these, and they would ask me, can you suggest a few change makers that we could bring on our Karamveer episode? Or I would get mails from Femina, and they'll say that, can you suggest a few women that we can feature on our special series? So I think while working with them, I realized that the stories can lead to a bigger impact.
Also, you wanted to give us a give us a peek into the newspaper and identify stories.
Yes, yes.
Can we do
So
that?
just to prove my point of why we desperately need development and rural journalism is, like, if we take a look at last week's newspaper, we know that there have been Assam floods and all, but there hasn't been much coverage about that in the newspaper. So just to give you a small peek inside the newspaper. Yeah. Okay, so this is yesterday's paper, and you see whatever news we see on the front page is either entertainment or crime, and everything else falls under those two categories. Like politics will come under both entertainment and crime, and then you'll have sports, which will again come under entertainment and everything. So we have this one is now because of COVID, we'll have a lot of COVID news. Then there's politics, and then again politics, and this is COVID and politics, and this is yesterday's newspaper. The day before yesterday, again, half of it is occupied by ads, and this is the newspaper which is comparatively much better. Like, this is the New Indian Express, and it has a better reputation than other newspapers. Again, this is like politics and all of that, and nothing much. And then the next is the day before newspaper, again a lot of politics everywhere, and in the bottom there's a little news on Channapatna toys, which is again somehow linked to politics and China. So you see there's not much that that's there on the front page, and it's really sad. If I really want to uh, read more about what's happening in the viewers community, where do I go? Like, every newspaper has a section of maybe state-wise or health, education, politics, sports, but they don't have a section of development or rural news. So if I want to understand what's happening in Northeast, Assam floods and all of that, where do I read? And even if any sort of news is published, it's so vague, and it's so superficial. Like, you'll just see the numbers, like, oh, these many people died, but a lot of rare species of rhinos also died, and they drowned during these floods, and we didn't see any coverage of that. And there was this I think environmental assessment bill or something, which was recently drafted by the parliament, and there was not much news about like, how can we oppose that, and how will it affect the future industries and projects, how will it affect the environment. So I think that's why we need more development news, because uh, this is the mainstream narrative, and this is just one-sided point of view. We don't see what the real people are thinking about. How does any policy, how does anything affect the real people of India? So all the news will be, oh, this bill has been passed, or this person became the CM, or this happened. But how does all of that affect us? Like, I don't know how will this any of this affect me. I would want to read a lot of news from people who are at the receiving end of all these decisions. That's why we need more of development journalism.
Right. Also, another question, follow-up question I had, Shreya. Do you think social media has done anything to bring in these narratives more to the mainstream? Has it helped in any way?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think social media, like, is one of the bigger reasons that we see somewhere all these stories still being part of the narrative. Like, all of us know that Amitabh Bachchan has got COVID because it was in the mainstream news. But we don't know about this whole environmental bill because it wasn't in the mainstream. I got to know through social media. So I read about it. I did my research. I sent out mails, and I did a story on this because I read someone's post. Another was like, when all this RA thing was happening in Mumbai, everyone was talking about the protest. Now people are protesting, and how it's such an evil thing to cut down all the trees. Agreed, it is an evil thing to cut down trees. But how many of us tried to think about the other angle of this thing. Like, did we know that like over 60% of the trees were non-native trees in those areas, and they were dominating in that locality, and they were killing other like useful trees in that area. And at the same time, did we bother to hear the side of the metro department and what they had to say? And it was just all on our horses and waging a war against all these people. But all of this information I got through social media, because I was following people from different sections of the society. So I gathered my own information, and I made my own opinion on what what I should support and what I shouldn't support. Obviously, it does do a lot of harm in a lot of ways. But for example, the Me Too movement was started out of social media. It later on became this huge thing and point of news and coverage. And a lot of so even small posts, like I recently posted something about my house help son who had started this urban terrace gardening business and out of recycled bottles, and I just put out a small post on social media, and NDTV and Bangalore Mirror and all of those guys covered him, and he got a lot of business out of those coverage. So I think social media does help in bringing out all of these stories.
Right. I I follow a couple of people. One of them being on Instagram. He's called Rohan Chakravarti.
Hmm.
It's called Green Humor. So
Nice.
he creates really informative comics, and he's been very vocal about the EIA bill.
Yes. Yes.
Which is why I asked you that question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, since you mentioned the pandemic,
Yeah.
how do development journalists go about getting news during? How are they doing? How are you doing?
Yeah. Okay. So one thing which is definitely negatively impacted is that we can't go out and cover news like we were doing earlier, and which used to set us apart from other publications was that we would be doing field coverage and not like telephoning or things. So that has affected us in a huge way. But the good thing also is that because we work with majority of local reporters, they're anyway in their own areas and they can anyway send their stories. That way I think it has worked out well for us in some ways, that the incoming of stories hasn't stopped, because the journalists are still documenting stories from the ground. Another thing, I think revenue wise, like everyone, we have like suffered a lot, and a lot of the paid projects got cancelled. But I believe that like although current times are really hard and everyone is getting affected negatively, it is also the best time to start something new and take on something which we always wanted to do. Because everyone right now understands your issues. Everyone understands like this is not the perfect time to be in the business. Everyone understands that you can't do certain things. So even if you are one of those guys who are ready to take risk, and you are like, okay, no matter like everything is shut down, I'll still try to bring this news out to you. I'll still try to document this. I'll make a few phone calls. I'll ask someone to go somewhere, or whatever, in whatever capacity you can work. I think you will have a leverage over other people, because most of us are sitting at home. But so if you can bring out good stories even if you can't go out, I think that can work in your advantage. And even if a lot of the people are not getting opportunities right now, so even if you don't get a proper job right now, or if you don't have a kickstart in your career in a newsroom, people understand that times are tough. So this whole 1 year will not be counted as a waste of time. You can still work from home. You can explore on different ways of storytelling. You can start your own blog, and a lot of these stories which these bigger media houses cover, they pick out from all these social media and smaller blogs, and that's when they pick up and take it forward. You can just use this as an opportunity, because everyone is at same level. No one is doing something extraordinary. Everyone is sitting at home trying to just survive, and for a change you are at their level, so use that time.
It has leveled the playing field, so to
Yes,
say.
yes, it has. Yeah.
And you personally, you're also doing a couple of videos from home.
Yes.
Do you want
Yeah,
to
it came out of like a frustration one day, where I had like really long list of projects planned. Was working with Telangana government. I had to go to Hyderabad. I had to go to Kolkata, and everything got cancelled. And I actually had to go to this fellowship which Kanchan ma'am had suggested me, and I got selected in. And I was supposed to go to Nepal for the same. Everything got cancelled, and I was like, the hell, and I can't just sit here and not do anything and cry about it. So one day I just made a video and released on my platform, talking about the inspirational stories that I've covered, or inspirational change maker, so that just to give out some positivity in such negative times. And that video received really good response, and people said, oh, we want to see more such videos. And now it became a thing. Now we have already released about 12 videos in that series, and I've had people coming to me saying that, oh, we would want to sponsor one of your videos. And so that eventually became one of my revenue sources, and which I didn't expect to become. It was just a few months thing. I thought I'll just utilize my time at home in doing something which I've never done before. And I've always been a very camera conscious person, camera shy person. I don't like being on camera. That's why I took broadcast and I would write stories. But I think this has made me come out of the comfort zone and explore different ways of storytelling, and grow as a person also. Yeah.
You wanted to show us a few pictures from
Yes.
some of your stories.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll show you. I'll show you about pictures of 4 stories, and I'll share a small summary of how each story went and what happened with that. One second. Okay. So this story is of Babar Ali. So Babar is
Is that your gallery which you have open?
this is just random like photo. Can you see?
Yes, we can see it now. Please
Okay.
go ahead.
So this was a story. This is one of the like very initial stories that I had done for the magazine called The Better India. And so the story was about this young guy who had started a school when he was just 5 years old. And one day he saw some kids playing outside, and he said, why aren't they attending school during school hours? Why are they just playing and all? And he found out that they couldn't afford to go to school because they were farm laborers and all. So he started a school in the backyard of his own house in West Bengal. And he was just I think 5 or 9 years old, and like about 30 to 35 kids started coming to him. So he would go to school every day, study, and come back and teach them whatever he had learned in the school. And his school became really big. Now it's like proper, like certified and all of that. And this story was very simple. Like it didn't have a lot of complicated narratives and all, but just a simple story of this boy and how he became the youngest headmaster of the world. And this story was picked up by Oxford University Press, and they republished this story in their school textbooks. And as a chapter, one of the chapters, and the students had to answer a few questions about his story and all. And another person who got a story published in the same textbook was Ruskin Bond. So that was a very like pleasant surprise and a sense of honor for me, because I wasn't expecting the story to do so well. Then another story was of this girl called Moni Begum. So she's from Bangladesh. Um, and she saw her sister get married at a really young age, and she saw how she faced domestic violence and how she was beaten up and all. So this made her start an organization at a very young age to fight against child marriages in Bangladesh. And this story, again, I did for the Stories of Change when I just started the publication, and there were hardly 100 followers on Facebook and all. And this story was picked up by other publications, and the story went so viral that about 5 to 10 people came forward and said that they would want to support her financially to build a proper infrastructure for her organization and send out volunteers to help her. So this was another interesting story that I had done. Another story was of this like very low cost water filter from North Karnataka. So this is the water filter cost just rupees 20, and I met this guy while I was doing some other story in North Karnataka. And so after I did this story, this guy received over 10,000 fresh orders for this water filter, and then he received an award from the Karnataka government, and they shared my story on their platform while introducing this guy. So another like bigger achievement which I got through the stories that I did was to help the startup sustain and get these low cost water filters to reach a lot of new people. Another interesting story I did was of this private wildlife sanctuary in Karnataka. So there's this couple who bought a barren piece of land and converted it into a wildlife sanctuary, which now hosts like Bengal tigers and other wild animals. And so when this story was published, it didn't like it did well, but I didn't see it going like places. And a few years ago, the lady, her name is Pamela, who owns this wildlife sanctuary, she called me and said that, oh, she got the Nari Shakti award from the government, and how Minka Gandhi got to know about her was through my story on the Better India. So I think Anna, this is one of the stories which is really close to my heart. Later on, we became really good friends, and I visited her sanctuary and I saw it myself. But initially, I just talked to her over the phone. There are some of the examples of how stories can create multiple positive impact.
These are brilliant stories, very inspirational, Shreya. Thank you for sharing them with us. We have a couple of interesting questions in the chat box. Now, the first one is from Aniruddha. Aniruddha, do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, please?
Yes. Yeah. Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
Yeah, actually, your stories are really inspirational.
Thank you.
And actually, sorry, I like before asking the question, I'll also say the same thing that I'm also pursuing this because I also like writing, and something which I can also connect with as compared to other journalism is like covering this story. So it was really, really inspirational, and it is difficult also at the same time. Okay, so I just wanted to ask a question. Like, is it very difficult to get? Is it there any scope for the development journalism in the mainstream media?
Okay. So, yes, now there is a huge scope for development journalism. A few years ago, it wasn't the case that you wouldn't see a lot of positive news or social news. But gradually, thankfully, because of the work from the Better India, because they have really grown a lot and they have really done so many wonderful stories that it has become part of the norm. Like a lot of, not just newspapers, but all these media agencies also, if they are putting out advertisement, they do want to put out some social angle to it. A lot of news channels or bigger TV shows, they invite people who, so they call like unsung heroes or real life heroes. So there has been now a space for such kind of news. You just have to find your right fit. Initially, you might not find exactly the kind of stories that you want to do. Like you might not find feature articles that you want to do in these publications, but you gradually start working towards one field and then build your niche. Like how I started, I didn't initially get to do the kind of stories I was doing. So I did whatever was given to me. I attended the events of environmental um, reference, and I wrote about pollution. I wrote about like random issues which could still be somewhere in the middle, mainstream media and social news. So start your journey with doing stories which other media houses will also pick up, and then gradually build your resume, and then you can get a chance to pitch bigger and more better feature articles.
Thank you, Shreya. The second question is from Amna Masroor. Amna, do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, please?
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Yes, go
So
ahead.
I wanted to ask, development journalism makes us aware of the issues that are overlooked by the mainstream media. So how difficult it is to keep up with this genre of journalism? Like, how can we find stories and cover it?
Okay, so I wouldn't lie to you. Like, it is extremely difficult to get people's attention to read such kind of stories. Like, if like I do a lot of social issues, rural issues, and those stories don't get as much traction as something I'll do if there's a celebrity involved in it. So that is the like bitter truth, that such stories are not interesting enough or spicy enough for people to read. But now that's our job to make it interesting. That's our job to make people want to read those, maybe through catchy titles, good feature images, photo stories, video stories. So it's definitely difficult to bring these news out in the mainstream space, but it's not impossible also. You just have to try extra hard. And so, sorry, what was your another question?
She asked how is it difficult to keep up with it, but I think you've answered it.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
thank
But Swagata's question is quite connected to it. Swagata, do you want to unmute yourself, please?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Miss Shreya, my question was, once we graduate from our diploma, I'm assuming that we'll first have to get some experience in a media agency. So which media houses are good in this to go to do better in this, to gain experience at first, and later when we want to do this independently, how is this, means what are the sources of funding? How do you arrange, how can you sustain this, for a long time? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so yes, you will like need to get associated with a news platform if you want to build some sort of credibility to your name as a journalist. So some of the platforms that you can apply to are like Down to Earth, and then there is People's Archive of Rural India. They work not with full-time journalists, but they have a fellowship system where you can apply for a 2-year fellowship, and then you cover stories at length with them. And even other publications which are more digitally inclined, like you have the Logical Indian, you have the Better India, Your Story has a separate section of a website called Social Story or Her Story, where you publish stories of social relevance and women empowerment. Then actually in fact every magazine like the Quint, the Wire, they all are taking stories of social change, and if it's a good feature article, they'll be happy to take you in their team. But you need to have you need to provide them something which other reporters are not giving. You have to be so good, and you have to come up with stories which are not written about that often. So even if you're writing about social change, don't write about someone who is already so famous. Like if you want to write about like social entrepreneurs, don't write about Anshu Gupta from Goonj. He's like everywhere. Everyone knows what he does. Write about someone who hasn't been explored yet. So if you are documenting stories which are lesser known, and that you will be able to do only if you work on the ground, grow on the field, and talk to people, and not do your research over the internet. So that way you can pitch story ideas and can be part of all these platforms without being full-time employed with them. You can anyway pitch your stories to a lot of platforms, and they do take your stories. They might not agree to pay you initially because they don't know you, and you don't have a lot of background that can back you up as a successful reporter. But once you send your stories and they accept that, and then they realize that the stories are of good quality, you're submitting them on time, and you are bringing something new to the table, they will assign you better stories, and they will commission you. So you can work with all of these. And how to fund your startup, or if whatever you're doing is, so there are multiple ways. I would personally suggest to not depend on funding. We haven't taken any funding, and it's always good to be self-sustainable and find a revenue model uh, which somehow grows with your publication. So if you want funding, there are multiple platforms that provide funding to new startups. Like there's an organization called IPSMF, and they provide funding to news publications who are started by journalists. So they have funded platforms like the Better India, Gaon Connection, and Khabar Lahariya, and all of these platforms have been funded by those guys. But if you don't want to get into the whole funding race, and because you have a lot to prove also. If you're going for funding, they won't fund you initially if you go like as a 1 month old publication showing a bunch of stories with no team and all. They wouldn't entertain you. But if you have a good revenue model in place, then even the funders would want to invest in you because you know how to earn money. So maybe find an alternate way to run your business, like on the side. Like how I do it is I run a media company, and the Stories of Change is part of that media company. So through that media company, we take assignments and projects from for CSR activities, NGOs and individuals who are doing some good work. So if they need any profiling of their work, video production, or like newsletter writing, or whatever content requirement they have in the social sector, we take up for them. So that way we earn money to run these Stories of Change. And then we have like a sponsored posts, then we have paid partnerships and all of that. So there are multiple ways to explore, and it's not easy. It takes a lot of time. It also takes a lot of your energy and networks to build something which is financially stable. So like if you can get a like funder, very good, go ahead with that. But if not, find better ways to run it.
Thank you, Shreya. The next question is from Rahul or Priyanka. Priyanka, sorry, I just phased out for a second. Did she already ask the question? No. What are the, Priyanka, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
Okay, what are the other alternative sources other than social media from where you collect the information for such journalism? And what are the qualities that we all should possess for pursuing such career in development journalism?
Okay. So one of the best places to get your information is like government websites. They put out a lot of all the news that they're working on their websites, like the CIB and all of those. So you just keep checking all those government related websites, and you can get a lot of newsletters from them. You can get a lot of circulars, and you can read through that. There are also a lot of websites which give you resource material of bigger reports. Like you'll get like 50-page report of some like environmental related act. You read that, you find relevant information from that, and then do your research and talk to people about that particular act and bring out a story on that. Another way to read to get to know such stories is there are platforms like Ashoka Fellowship, Inc. Fellowship, TED Fellowship. So they give fellowships and awards to people who are doing something good in the social sector. So you can actually go on their website, read a lot about change makers and unsung heroes of the country and from India and abroad. So that way you can understand about how people are working in different fields, what kind of work they are doing, and then you can frame bigger and better stories out of that. Another way is to just look at everyday's newspaper, find whatever information you can find in that newspaper about any community that you want to write about, and then do your own research and find a different angle to that story, talk to people. And nothing can replace your own research. So like if you want to write about, say, COVID and how it has affected a certain community, just talk to the house help who comes to you. Ask her about how is everyone at her village, how are they coping with this, how has this affected her business, or have people fired her, or have people not paid her enough. So you get a story right there in your house. So if you have an open eye, it's not that difficult to find stories. And once you do a lot of stories, people will start sending you emails like they do to me, like, oh, this is an interesting person that I thought is worth covering. So they'll send you emails, they'll send you messages, and then you can take a call whether you want to write about them. You also have to be very careful, because a lot of these people, once they have initially started, it's just an idea. You wouldn't just want to cover an idea unless it's a proper product actually creating an impact, because a lot of the times they share an idea and there's a news everywhere about that, and then it goes nowhere. Another place to find stories about rural innovations, I would say, is an organization called National Innovation Foundation. They organize these yatras every year. I don't know if it's happening now, but they organize that every year where they walk about 1,000 kilometers on foot and walk in the villages and talk to people and find out story ideas. So you can be actually part of that yatra and find your stories there. So yeah, there are a lot of ways to find such stories.
Thank you for giving us the resources to find stories, Shreya. We're going to Rahul next, who has a question on documentary and the making of it. Rahul,
Yeah,
please ask your question.
I'm extremely inspired by your stories. Thank you so much for giving us an insight into your journey. But I was really interested in the documentary part that you spoke about. So could you take us through the journey of actually leaving your previous work, then going on to documentaries, like getting together the crew, doing something completely different, and also like share the link to some of them, because I would love to see it, like if you don't mind.
Yeah, definitely. I'll share the links with you all. Okay, so my biggest motto in life is to not spend your money, not spend a lot of money, work in a budget, take help from people, and work with whatever resources you have. So how I jumped onto documentary filming was I wanted to do these stories, and I didn't want to do tech stories. So I know someone, everyone knows someone who can, get us connected with someone. So I know this guy who is a like he studied cinematography. He was still a student, but still a better camera person than I was. So I just gave him a call, and thankfully he happened to be my cousin. So I didn't have to pay him also. So I just said, okay, this place, this time, please come with me. So he accompanied me. He had all the equipments. Even if he didn't have that, I forced him to borrow them from his college or friends. So you literally have to like force people and exploit them initially, because you don't have the resources. So it's okay to like exploit your cousins and friends in the beginning. So I took his help. I took him around with me, and then we started shooting, and we had a week long time where we spent 3 days at one location and 2 days at one location, and then both of us were in different locations, so we had to finish editing also in that 1 week's time. So we didn't sleep at all for 2 days. We continued the editing process. We finished the editing in that 1 week, came back, and then released the story. So you have to be ready to either have a plan and not have a plan. You need to be ready to work without resources. Like one time I went to shoot a documentary recently, and I realized that something happened to my camera and it wasn't recording properly. So I shot the entire documentary on my iPhone, and I released that documentary from that iPhone. So one thing I go by is that done is better than perfect. Don't wait for the perfect equipment, perfect story, perfect time. Just do it, because believe me, a lot of the people don't even take the first step to do something. They just keep thinking and ideating and don't take any step to work on it. As long as you're working on it, it's fine. You will eventually improve. I was not a documentary filmmaker. I didn't know how to handle a camera, but once I didn't have even the camera person with me, I just shot it on my iPhone. So everything is possible. It's okay. Like what worst can happen? People will just make fun of your documentaries. It's okay. Like it's still a learning process. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Like, thank you.
Also, like, don't be scared to ask for help. Like, even if you're at an unknown location and you need something, people are willing to help. Like, I just took help from like such random people. Like, I borrowed laptops, I borrowed tripods, like even basic equipments. If I couldn't find on time, I just borrowed from people. So you just need to be open to accept that you're not perfect. You should understand that you don't know everything. You're just starting, and it's okay to just not do an excellent job at the very first go. It's just important to do it at first. That's it.
So the basic thing is to be willing to work hard.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Shreya. We've answered a couple of previous questions. You've answered it in your previous answer. So we're skipping to Aniruddha's question. Aniruddha Yarunkar, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, hi again, ma'am. So, actually, I just wanted to ask, like, development stories are different than the mainstream news we report. So, how did you build your language, which is different than the mainstream news editing or which you write in the mainstream?
Okay. So obviously this was one of my biggest challenges also. Although while I was at IIJNM, they did have Kannada classes, but they were so early in the morning, I didn't attend them. So I did face a lot of issues when I was out in the field. So in case IIJNM is offering you language classes, please take them. It's really helpful. So what I did was, when I went to any field location, when I was interviewing someone who didn't understand my language, I just took someone along with me from maybe a nearby NGO or Gram Panchayat or someone who can help me translate things. And people are willing to accompany you because you are there to do stories and you're from outside, and they would want to, support you in whatever way they can. So just take someone who understands a bit of your language and a bit of someone else's language. If you don't find anyone at that area, record everything in whatever language they're saying and bring it back, and then ask someone to translate it for you. And don't forget to take their phone numbers, their addresses where you can communicate against, so that if you need to ask more questions with help of someone who's a native language speaker, you can just connect them over the phone. So just because you don't understand language, just ask them to ask them to just say everything on record, just record everything and come back. That way it helps. And you have translators and all who are like really easy to work with. They don't take a lot of money also to translate a lot of your work. So, and but the best would be to just get some knowledge of basic regional language. Like I can little bit now communicate in Kannada because I have been living here. I can't still communicate in Marwadi, which is strange because I am from Rajasthan, but it will be good if you can get some basic knowledge of regional language.
Piara, your question is next. Do you want to unmute
Uh,
yourself and ask your
Yes,
question, please?
please.
Yes.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So, ma'am, I really enjoyed your talk today. I felt like you were saying all the things about my true calling. And see, I'm really passionate about being a journalist. And but if we talk about, the mainstream media, like you said, it's all about the numbers and the facts and, delivering stories more based on politics and all, on the front page. And stories take a back seat. So, I have to, keep my personal beliefs and ethics out of those facts and numbers. So it's a personal dilemma that I have. Can a journalist be an activist, a reformer, or just all three of them combined? And you are at this platform of the stories of change, and I was, what would you call yourself?
Okay. So I actually read somewhere that journalists should be a fly on the wall and not try to get into something and not try to change whatever. And you just need to report whatever you're seeing and not put your ideas into that. I work in slightly different way. Everyone has their own ideologies and everyone there has their own opinions. What I feel is that if you see something and you have the power to document that and write about that in a way that can influence people in a good way. I'm not saying to negatively influence people and like press an agenda or something. But if you think aggressively talking about an issue and asking people to take a call of action or pushing them to do something which is in the greater good, if you say like environment, we all know we need to say environment. So if you're reporting on something and asking people to come together for a particular cause, I personally don't find any harm in it. And there is a very thin line between activism and journalism. And if you are I personally cannot disassociate myself with activism. I have always been a kind of person who would always take action. I was always passionate about things, so that reflects on my writing also. Sometimes if I am like too vocal or too strong in my words in my article and I think it's one-sided, it's always good idea to take multiple sources in your story, take multiple voices in your story, so that your voice doesn't overpower it. Take different angles, is your point of view. So that way you're bringing different point of views and also putting out what you feel is right, and then leave it on the readers to take their own decisions after reading your stories. Like the similar question was asked to me by one of my reporters recently. So we work with a few reporters from Jammu and Kashmir, and they did a story of contingent workers from Kashmir and how they were paid just ₹50 a month for a full-time work of sanitary workers and all of that. And after that story, this Keto crowdfunding campaign reached out to me saying that they would want to crowdfund some money for these workers so that they can just, live at least a little better life. So I connected them with the journalist, and the journalist asked me the same question. Like, I'm a journalist. If I start this crowdfunding campaign, will I be an activist? And I don't want to be one. So my point was first to ask yourself why you want to be a journalist. Is it just to be in a newsroom, report stories, feel like a journalist, and like be a very professional, good journalist? Is this your main bigger goal? Then you need not associate yourself with any crowdfunding, social help, or any of it. But if your bigger vision is to bring about a change, or as we call it, a catalyst for journalism as catalyst for change, then you have to take a couple of extra efforts to bring that into your profession. And to be honest, like you are a journalist as a professional. You are your profession is journalism, but that doesn't changes your personality. If you want, you are an activist by heart, even the profession can't change that about you. It will reflect on your writing. So as long as your activism isn't harming people, it's fine to do that, I guess. Totally depends on you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shreya. I wanted to ask a slightly follow-up question, seeing that we have another 5 minutes. Shreya?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you write a human interest story? How is it structured?
Okay. So I usually, so if we are writing about an organization or any human interest story, it's always good to write it through the lens of regular people, because people get attracted to people's stories. People don't get attracted to numbers or organizations, or like if I start a story about, okay, these many people died today in Assam floods, it will be a regular numbered story. But if I talk about, okay, this person was going there and this happened and that happened and this is how he personally got affected, that immediately catches the reader's attention, because now they see a person, not a number. They say, oh my god, he had a family, this happened, and then they would want to read more about that story. So I personally always start with a human interest personal story of a person and how a particular incident or an initiative has affected them, and then pan out the story, then bring in the numbers, then bring in the larger point of view, and then in the end go back to that one person, so that you're left with a lingering thought of how that work or that story has created impact in that person's life. So it's always good to include a lot of individual voices in your story, even if it's a government scheme policy, if it's a daily wage labor story, or if we write about, okay, so many daily wagers are just walking to their villages. It's a story, a generic story. But if I pick out one such worker from there and narrate his story, it will give more credibility to the story, because I've actually spent time to talk to that person and bring out his story rather than just reading a number and writing about it. So I think, yeah.
Thank you, Shreya. So you're telling me that we need to make people want to put themselves in your the person that you are talking about, in their shoes.
Yeah.
To contextualize it.
Yes.
Thank you. You've also told us that we need to present numbers in a way that it highlights the deeper context, in order to dig deeper and start our careers in development journalism by trying to build a bridge between mainstream story and a development story. That is my takeaway from your webinar today.
Yeah.
I also wanted to tell the audience here that she mentioned Nagesh Hegde, who is the faculty at IIJNM, who will be teaching you environmental and rural reporting. And one of the things I didn't know about Nagesh Hegde was that his work on iron ore, India's iron ore export, was debated in the Indian Parliament before the emergency. So
Yeah.
I learned that after I came to IIJNM. So his classes I've heard are very interesting and engaging.
They are, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Shreya. It was really great having you. And we look forward to brilliant stories from your platform.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk to all of you, especially because such webinars just give me a fresh summary of my entire career and the entire stories that I've done. So it's always a pleasure to talk about these stories. And I like, even if one person gets interested in reading, like, not talking about writing, but just reading these stories and looking for these stories in the newspapers, I think my task will be done. So once you go back from this webinar, I would ask you to just read today's newspaper, look for a development or positive news that you can find, and see like why are there not enough news like that.
Thank you, Shreya.
Thank-
So the next webinar will be conducted by alumni Pavitra Parekh, who's the Senior Associate Producer and Anchor at CNBC TV 18. She'll be speaking on business journalism and other related aspects. Shreya, do you want to send me the links that you said you'll send? And I will put it across to the participants.
Yeah, I'll
Their
send
emails. I will send it to you.
Yeah.
And I'll see you all in the next webinar. Thank you, Shreya. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Hey, it was good, really good.
Stop record.
Oh, sorry.
We're gonna have to take